So it's lovely to meet you all. My name is Rachel and I work at Amicus. We've kind of set this up in partnership with Stephen Rooks, and I will come over to introducing everybody shortly. So thank you for joining. We are going to be talking today about the recruitment landscape. So, how we can navigate compliance and the candidate experience. As we know, the recruitment landscape is really complex. So, there's a lot of evolving compliance demands and high expectations for candidate experience. But for those of you who don't know us, we are Amicus. So, Chris and I are both Amicus based, and this is one of the topics that we manage on a day-to-day basis. So, what we are is we're one of the UK's most trusted onboarding compliance platforms. So, we work with UK government, Amazon, Challenge TRG, Job and Talent, AMS, etc., and many more. And what we do is we deliver onboarding compliance. So, looking at being trusted, fast, and accurate. So, on average, we're kind of about one of our recent results were 4 hours for a DBS check. So, it's all about how can we make things simple, faster, all while delivering an exceptional experience for candidates. And equally, and just as importantly, making sure that it's nice and efficient for organisations too. So we're at the heart of a community there, and that's one of the things that we're talking about day in and day out. And that's why we wanted to chat to you about it today. So, about how you can confidently navigate compliance and make sure that you're creating an outstanding onboarding journey. So, we are joined today by our very own Chris McGooking and Stephen Rooks. And Stephen joins us from Strategic Risk and Compliance Consulting. And he has got over 20 years experience. And I've just realized I haven't flipped through the screen. So I do apologize for that. Um, he's got over 20 years experience in risk and compliance. Former commercial and legal director at a multi-billion pound global recruiter. And for those of you who know APSCO, he was twice chair of APSCO. So, Stephen, it's lovely to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to give a little bit of an introduction to yourself for anything I've missed?
Yeah, sure. So I set up SRC, Strategic Risk and Compliance, 2.5 years ago when I left NES after 17 years of service. And currently I support 26 clients, UK and internationally, on the really exciting subjects of risk and compliance. And I'll talk a bit more about those today.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And Chris, do you want to just give us a little bit of introduction to yourself as well?
Yeah, hi everybody. So my name's Chris. I'm one of the business development managers here at Amicus, specialising more towards the recruitment and staff onboarding space. I've been with Amicus for around about 3 years, and yeah, just love speaking to clients and hopefully seeing how we can make that process easier for them.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you both for joining us today. I'm really excited for this one. I think it's going to be a really fantastic conversation. So, but before we start, want to just kick off with a bit of a question for everybody. So, what we'd like to know is we would like to get a feel for what your biggest compliance challenge is right now. So, I am just going to pop a poll up for you, and we would absolutely love it if you could just take a moment to answer some of those. We'll give you about a minute for that, and just so we can make sure that what we're doing is kind of answering some of your biggest compliance challenges and just checking in with those. Let's just give you a second for that one. Lots of answers coming in, which is fantastic. So we've got some clear winners so far. I will share the results in a moment for you. We've got a couple left to answer. Okay, so I'm going to close this one off now. So just share these results for you. Not sure if you guys can see these, but balancing compliance with speed to placement is a number one. I don't know if that's surprising, Stephen, Chris.
That's really helpful because part of the conversation today is all about how we achieve that balance. So yeah, that's very supportive actually for the topic we're talking about.
Very timely then. And ensuring every candidate is fully qualified and background checked. And I think that's something we come across a lot, Chris, isn't it, in conversations with clients?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Right, so I am going to quieten down a little bit now for you, and I'm going to hand you over to Stephen and Chris, who are going to kick things off properly. Over to you.
Thank you. So what I'm going to talk about first of all is understanding what the risks are that recruitment businesses are facing. So based upon my sort of 20 plus years of experience in reviewing contracts and supporting clients in their management of risk and mitigation of that risk, I always trying to work to sort of simplified models. And so I've come up with 5 key categories. The first is operational risk. This is all about your business processes and how you go about screening candidates, checking them, vetting them, making sure that they've got the right qualifications and experience for the roles that your clients are looking for them to perform. The second one is financial risk. This is all about, is it very clear in the contract about what you're getting paid for doing what service, when you're going to get paid? Because the risk exposure is A, you may get invoices paid late, or worse still, invoices not being paid, which is obviously a key risk that we want to avoid. The legal risk is obviously where I spend most of my time as a consultant working for the clients that I support, and that is reviewing the actual contracts and identifying what the liabilities are within those contracts, indemnities, guarantees, all those good scary words, and what are the penalties if you get it wrong, the potential damages if you get that wrong. And a key part of that risk is, do you have liability for the candidates that you place, for the contractors that you place, what we call vicarious liability. And that's obviously the key risk that could materialize and one that I support clients in terms of negotiating that away, because ideally you're not in a position to accept that risk. But that's a whole different subject, talking about vicarious liability. So I'm not going to go into much more detail today. Data risk, again, is important from an onboarding perspective, is how are we managing the personal data of candidates? A, to make sure that it's securely held, but also what data are we collecting? Do we have the right to collect that? How are we storing it? And compliance with UK version of GDPR and any other data protection laws that you're around the world. And finally, the brand risk. So if any one of the above goes wrong, then it will have a significant impact on the brand, the company's reputation out there with its candidates and with its clients, which could result in loss of contracts or even worse, say, penalties and fines and claims for damages. So all of those risks there do have, if they go wrong and you're not managed correctly, a negative impact on profitability and a whole host of other things. But that's the reason why I am supporting a number of clients in terms of managing that risk. Rachel, do the next slide. So on this slide here, what I've actually focused on are what I call the standard recruitment risks. What are the things that are very specific to recruitment and the ones that recruitment businesses need to get to grips with and being able to manage, because that's what they're getting paid to do by their clients. So the first one is employment laws, whether that is because a contractor or candidate is deemed to be your employee in the UK or elsewhere in the world, or they're independent contractors. They all have some form of employment rights in the UK, whether that may be agency workers regulations, etc. And so it is your responsibility as a recruitment business to make sure that you do not breach those employment laws and the employment rights of the individuals. And come potentially April 2027, those regulations are going to change with the new Employment Reforms Act that's coming through. So we need to watch out for those for the future. A key responsibility you also have as a recruitment business is the withholding of any income taxes, any national insurance or social security, and making sure that that's paid over to the correct authorities. And so failure to withhold the correct amount, so you may incorrectly classify a contractor as an employee or an independent contractor, again, we need to watch out for that one. And again, if you may have seen this week, the government has announced a reform of the umbrella market in the UK. And as of April 2026, recruitment businesses will be jointly and severally liable for unpaid tax by an umbrella company. So again, something that you need to look at in terms of who's on your PSL and from an umbrella perspective, and how you are going to ensure and do your due diligence to make sure they're making their payments. But again, that's another huge subject. A lot of webinars going on about that at the moment. So it's well worth looking into those, because that is going to be the biggest overhaul in terms of recruitment agencies' responsibility in regards to umbrellas that it has been for many, many years. Clients will have in the contract very heavy clauses related to client confidentiality, the need for you to protect your clients' confidential information, and most importantly, if you breach this, your liability could be uncapped. The same with data protection and privacy under GDPR. Your exposure is huge if you're not managing your data correctly. And we all know and see in the press very recently a lot of cyber attacks and stealing of personal data. So you need, again, to make sure that the data that you're holding on your candidates is secure, and in terms of your internal security processes are secure and up to standard. Infringement of IPR, people go, well, where's that arise? It's the usage of your third parties. So whether you're using a CRM, you are indemnifying your clients for any breach of their intellectual property. That's what IPR means. So again, you need to ensure that you've got appropriate arrangements in place, processes in place to manage and not breach somebody else's IPR. And then the big one, which is what we're really going to be focusing on for the rest of this webinar, is what you call the operational errors and omissions. This is going back to the processes that you adopt in terms of managing how you go about onboarding candidates. So if we just move to the next slide. And so moving really now into that sort of operational compliance responsibilities. And what I want to focus on here is that about onboarding. So there are regulatory requirements out there in terms of right to work. And again, the UK has its very specific requirements, but every other country around the world will have something similar. And you need to make sure that you're following those, because there are heavy fines if you fail to check that someone has a legal right to work in the UK. Background screening. In the US, for example, you might be doing drug and alcohol testing, criminal checks. So these checks and screening requirements do vary by country. In some countries, it's illegal to do some of these things. Other countries, it becomes quite standard. And reference checking is an area that is important for recruiters, and one that sometimes is fallen short, because there is actually no legal requirement. This is all about making sure that you actually perform what you're being paid to do, which is find the right talent who meet the client's role specification. So they may say, we want somebody that has performed this work in the past, they've performed this role in the past, and that's what the reference check-in is about. Chris will talk a bit more about that later on. But the key takeaway for me is that very often compliance is seen as a burden. But actually, if you get it right, and this is what I did for 17 years, and now with my clients, if you get it right, it can become a key differentiator. It can differentiate you from second-rate recruitment businesses to those that are actually outperforming their competitors, because they get the compliance right. They do it as you did in the poll. They enable it to get to placements quicker. But it's about the right placement, and it's about making sure that all those checks have been done correctly. So, Chris, in terms of Amiqus, what are you seeing as what clients are facing the issues?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So certainly in some of the kind of recent conversation that I'm having with current and prospective clients, there's a few things that stand out. Firstly, that ever-present talent shortage and skills gaps. So I read recently that 76% of employers are still struggling to find the right people to fill the roles that they need. So still an ever-present problem, one that seems to not be going away. And moving into that, it's like Stephen has mentioned, the varied and complex compliance demands. So it's not just keeping on top of changing regulation. So an example of that could be the recent right to work legislation extending to gig economy workers. But then it's the ultimately the end client's compliance demands. So especially in regulated sectors, it might not just be right to work. It could be financial probity. It could be, different levels of DBS checking. It could be various levels of employment history. So a lot of things can change. It can be very specific role to role, client to client. And keeping on top of that is certainly a challenge that certainly I'm hearing. Moving into that, long fragmented processes. So still a reliance on manual paper-based processes, candidates still being required to visit to hand in documents that are then being checked by somebody. And frankly, unless you know your passports inside out, it's very difficult to decipher which is a legitimate one, which isn't. So yeah, potentially then using various different systems for different parts of the process. So again, replication of data entry for yourself and for candidates, potentially using traditional outsource screening where essentially it's out of your control and it's all being managed and you've got no control over how long that's going to take and what the candidate experience is like. And ultimately that's leading to extended time for candidates to be placed, and worst case scenario, candidates just simply dropping out of the process because it's becoming far too difficult. And going back to point one, when you find somebody really good, the last thing you want to do is lose them because you're taking too long to get their screening done. Next slide, please, Rachel. So a few trends that I see from sort of successful Amiqus clients and what they're adopting. So firstly, bringing in technology, as you probably expect I was going to say that. So moving away from those manual paper-based processes, it absolutely is going to save you time and give you more peace of mind. I would always caveat this with saying that the most successful clients are being super selective and strategic of which technology they bring in. So there's a piece of software that will do everything for you, but the key thing is establishing what those pain points are and being really targeted and picking the technology that solves that for you. Not just doing part of it or not just picking the cheapest thing that comes out into the market. Centralizing systems is a big one. So ideally having a software or system that will do everything for you, or ultimately then having a tech stack that talks to each other. So, how seamlessly is information being passed from one system to the other? The most successful clients have got systems that will simply talk to each other, and it's reducing the time it takes to complete these checks in the process. And then lastly, prioritizing candidate experience. Quite a simple one, but so often I've seen that candidates have been made to fit into an existing process that may tick the boxes, but ultimately isn't very good for them. So successful organizations are building a process and a system around that candidate experience and making it as simple and as easy for them as possible. So Stephen, what sort of expectations are you seeing from candidates and clients?
So from the candidate's perspective, what I have seen is that for that onboarding process, they want something that has speed and efficiency related to it, because so often they are required to upload various documents. They get numerous different emails or outputs from DocuSign, and it's a very cumbersome process for them, and which can take quite a while. So they're looking for that more professional approach, whereby it's a single source in terms of uploading their documents and an interface that is very easy to use. But also, obviously, with all of the cybersecurity issues that are around, they want to make sure that their personal data that they're handing over, very often it might be a bank statement or obviously their passports or what have you, that is being held securely, it's been uploaded securely. And so there is an increasing concern about that data of theirs. But as we all know, we're all becoming much more reliant upon our mobile phones. And there is a need to make sure that what we're offering candidates is ability to actually do things from their mobile phones. So they can do it while they're on the move. A lot of candidates may actually obviously not be working from home. There might be another assignment somewhere else, and so don't necessarily have access to the laptops and what have you. So yeah, mobile friendliness is appropriate. In terms of clients, well, not surprisingly, the first 2 points were the ones that came up on that survey we started off with. So if I take the second one first, 46% of you identified that clients are looking for that speed of placement. balancing those compliance requirements. And some of the times that it takes because of that onboarding process can be cumbersome and slow because it's very manual, can mean that these placements are taking days, weeks, and sometimes beyond that. And that's what clients are looking for, is a much, much quicker process. But also about the vetted talent. Again, 21% said that they wanted to make sure that they're getting talent that's been properly vetted. And clients having that visibility to see that vetting is so important. And that's, again, what I see as their expectations going forward. We've talked about a load of risks at the very beginning there, particularly on the operational side, and in terms of the legal risks. So clients are looking to ensure that whatever they're using for their onboarding process reduces that risk, because they can see that the whole process is being done correctly, and they have an auditable trail for the future if there is a challenge, because this is where clients and recruitment agencies are carrying their PI insurance in case that goes wrong. So we want to reduce the possibility of claims. And then finally, not surprisingly, clients want to make sure that whatever onboarding process they're using with a recruitment agency, it positively reinforces the brand of that client, and supports the employer of choice that obviously a lot of clients are looking for these days. Next slide, please. So what, in terms of, say, the starting point and in terms of the heading for this this webinar, was all about how do we elevate the onboarding process. So let's make compliance a positive experience. Saying it's bread and butter for me, and it is a positive. It needs to be a positive experience for everybody, and not just seen as a burden. And so, therefore, the encouragement I have for recruitment businesses is let's just get beyond this being a constant checklist and a very transactional. Let's make it a much more personalised experience for the candidate. Let them feel that they are being properly engaged, that we are only asking for documentation that they really need to provide. And with the digitalization available now, which again Chris will talk about in a moment, actual requirements for some of these documents to be uploaded can be removed. So it makes it a much easier process for candidates going forward. But all about this, it's all about communications. Clients and candidates will be going, where is this candidate in the process? And if that information can be provided quick and easily to the candidates and to yourselves about where in the process are my documents, where in the process am I in terms of onboarding, that is again going to be really helpful, because that's what obviously people bugbear when it's been sort of time is passing by and they don't know what's missing or needs updating. So the key thing here is if we can get this experience right, we reduce the drop-offs and enhance the reputation not only of the recruitment agency, but also the end client, because they get their candidates a lot quicker. And so, Chris, how can Amiqus help support this then?
Absolutely. So there's certainly a few things that using Amiqus will give recruitment agencies an advantage. So the first one really is reducing your administrative workload. So to the point that Stephen just mentioned about various different documents being required, Amiqus plugs into over 30 different digital data sources. So that means we can pull back information and reduce the amount of documents that need to be uploaded or bits of information that need to be gathered. So by putting everything into one place, recruiters with a couple of clicks of a button can send out a completely individualized, personalized request dependent on the candidate type, the role type, and the level of risk that's required. So, a couple of seconds to a minute out of your day, and you've got those requests sent off. They can also be sent at volume as well. So if you've got lots of people to do at one point in time, you can do so. So the idea really is it's taking that sort of burden, that administrative workload away from you. We provide superior candidate experience. So we're a web-enabled platform. So to Stephen's point, we can be completed on mobile devices, which is the most common way. Our statistics back this up though. So everyone likes to say they've got the best candidate experience. Our stats back this up. We do tens of thousands of checks per month within the platform, and less than 1% of individuals actually come to us for technical help. But importantly, we have our own dedicated support team when they do get stuck, and we have a CSAT score of 10% above industry average. So essentially, in a nutshell, most people are just going to breathe through this process, whatever you've asked for. And if they do get stuck, they get superior service to help them. We're also introducing a reusable digital wallet, which is going to come into play where if candidates are doing multiple different roles or if they're being, rescreened for organizations, that information is already there for them. So we're constantly evolving to make that as easy and as simple for the candidate as well. And ultimately, this is going to lead to faster placements. So, as I say, we're not a traditional outsourced screener. We're a digital platform, which means we pull that information directly. So, for example, right to work checks, when they're completed, are done instantly. Basic DBS checks come back in less than a day. Enhanced DBS checks around 12 days on average. Employment referencing, so verifying employment history and gathering references, the average is 4 days, just for example. So ultimately, the process that's maybe taking you weeks before can take you days. So candidates are in there more quickly. You realise revenue much more quickly as well. We're easy to integrate with, so we have an open API. So you can build integrations really simply and seamlessly onto our system. But likewise, we are also building out integrations with major ETSs such as Bullhorn. So watch this space. You're soon going to have this all set up and ready to go for you. And ultimately, we provide peace of mind. So we're obviously an accredited identity service provider for right to work checks and for DBS checks. Importantly, though, all of the information and all of the checks that you complete are stored securely within our platform with the highest level of security. So we have ISO 27001, Cyber Essentials Plus accreditation. And the good part for yourselves is that when you need to evidence all the steps you've done to sort of minimize and prevent those risks, as Stephen talked about, everything's securely stored under that candidate's name in a really simple and easy to evidence format. So a full report of all the checks that you've done, as well as a time-stamped activity log evidencing when they've been done, who's done them, and who's approved them. So the idea being is all the areas that we've talked about, the stress, the risk is minimized by using a simple, seamless system such as Amiqus. Thanks for listening. I'll pass you back to Rachel.
Of course, I was on mute, wasn't I? It had to happen. Thank you so much both for that. That was really interesting and really helpful, and interesting to see that some of your top risks, Stephen, actually, well, all of your top risks, in fact, aligned clearly with what everybody else was saying, which is fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ask you another question, just out of curiosity to see if anything's changed or how anybody's feeling following the things that Stephen and Chris have shared. So if you would just, I'm just going to launch this second question for you. And I'll just give you a minute to answer it. So just to get a feel for, having listened to this webinar now and what Stephen and Chris have shared, has anything changed? What's your top priority now, do you think? Is it the same? May well be. Amazing. Oh, there's a good mix. This time round, no one clear winner. So I'm just going to give another 10 seconds or so. And then what we're going to do after that is we're going to jump onto a Q&A. So if you've got any burning questions for Stephen and Chris, then you can by all means please start popping them into the Q&A section, or even in the webinar chat is absolutely fine. I'm keeping an eye on both of those now. So brilliant. I'm going to just end this poll. 1 second. So can you see those results? So we've got well, it's quite a mix actually. So ensuring every placement meets compliance standards is at 29%, reducing manual admin and paperwork 24%. And then we've got 2 at 18, and that's giving candidates a smoother experience and speeding it up as well. So meeting that compliance standard, still pipping everything else to the post, but there is quite a blend there. So thank you very much, everybody, for completing that for us. So as I mentioned, we're going to move over now to a Q&A section. Oh, got a little bit ahead of myself there. So if anybody has got any questions, like I said, if you could just pop them into the Q&A section. at the bottom or into the chat, and we will get those answered for you. In the meantime, while people are asking their questions, Stephen, what's the one thing that people can take away from this today? So I'm catching you off guard here. It was an unprepped question.
I think it's about using compliance to differentiate yourself from your competitors. Because if you can do that correctly, in a way that enables the client to get their placements quicker and enables the candidate to start their new job quicker, in a friendly manner for them, user-friendly manner, then you will be able to distinguish yourself from your competitors, and therefore, not surprisingly, win more work, because the client will see that you are able to meet that requirement of ensuring all the boxes are ticked in terms of compliance, that they're getting vetted talent, and that they are getting suitably qualified talent, that they don't need to worry about the legal risks of individuals not having the right to work, etc. And for the candidate, they will keep coming back to that recruitment agency because the experience that they had in terms of getting onboarded was a good one, and wasn't frustrating, wasn't difficult in terms of the amount of information they had to provide. And so part of that is about using a system like the Amiqus one, particularly the wallet. And obviously, you and I have had a lot of conversations about the wallet over the last few months. And to me, it's interesting because it's a dream that I had 10 or 15 years ago. We called it the passport at the time, about how we could move candidates from one client to another or one assignment to another without having to keep going back asking for the same documentation. And so things like the wallet that will store that information, and importantly, notify the candidate, the recruitment agency, if something is about to expire. And so would need renewal, whether that be a visa or whether that be insurance certificates or whether that be a passport. So that all improves that experience and adds value for the recruitment agency to attract the best talent to come and work via them, and for the clients to know that they can get that much needed talent onboarded for their key projects as quickly as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Stephen. So we've got a couple of other questions that have come in. The first one is, what is the most common recruitment compliance pitfall that you see companies facing today? Who wants to take that one?
Is that in the chat one, is it? Yeah? Is it?
No, the Q&A.
Q&A. Just say that again. Sorry, what was the question?
What's the most common compliance pitfall that you see recruiters facing today?
I think it's insufficient vetting of the candidate. I think the right to work, etc., because they are regulatory requirements, the statutory requirements, are done. But I would be concerned about the efficiency of that because it's a very manual process. And also about the effectiveness of that in terms of, are they individuals who are checking the passports actually able to do what they need to do in that regard? But obviously with the UK, you get the codes and what have you, so it's a lot but the difficulty there is that, say, it can be a slow, cumbersome process. So I think that part of it is being done, but there's a better way of doing it. The area I think that I see is that they're not properly vetting. Are they taking the reference checks on the candidates they put forward? Are they checking qualifications and experience of the individuals beyond just looking at their CV, looking at their LinkedIn profile, and maybe asking some questions? So I think that's an area, because that has huge exposure for professional indemnity insurance claims. Because if that individual didn't have the right qualifications that the client asked for, or they hadn't been properly reference checked, and they then subsequently go on to do something that results in a client losing money or suffering some damage, there could be a claim for negligence from the client in that respect. So that is an area where I think a lot of recruitment agencies are falling short of their professional responsibility.
Fantastic, thank you. So we've got a question here from Maria, who said it might not actually be the right question for this webinar, so this one's probably a bit of a curveball, but what are the skills that recruiters are looking for that candidates are still lacking? Do you have any insight into that, Stephen? Appreciate that might not be entirely your wheelhouse, but are you hearing anything out there?
I think a lot of that is so some of the examples that I come across is the experience that candidates have to be agile in their roles. So we've all sort of got a swim lane that we go down and for our own professional responsibilities and what have you. But the world is changing so fast, and the environment that we operate in, and the change of laws and regulations and our perception of risk and what have you is constantly changing. And therefore, when I'm supporting clients and interviewing, it's about have candidates got the ability to say be agile, be able to pivot and move around to cope with those ever-changing requirements. I think far too often we get sort of stuck in our own swim lanes, and we need to have much more flexibility going forward in the future. And so, yeah, I think that's probably one of the key areas that I'm seeing is the need to have that greater flexibility and be more agile in terms of how you deal with future problems.
Fantastic, thank you. I hope that helps, Maria. And then we've got one more question, which is for you, Chris. Got one for you. So the first part of the question is, do you have a demo of the platform we can view online? And I can answer that. It's a yes, and I'm going to share a link now in the chat for you. But the main question then is, how does DBS and right to work checks work on the Amiqus platform? So we currently use Experian, and both checks are on different platforms by Experian. This is where our onboarding checks become long, delayed, and admin heavy. We took reference checks back in-house due to the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the right to work checks, so firstly, we have essentially a completely streamlined integration. So documents are verified instantly. So there's no sort of second checking or manual checking. So the technology will verify that document for right to work checks instantly. In terms of how DBS checks work, we are essentially an authorized umbrella of DBS. So we plug directly into the system. So essentially when you would submit a DBS check off direct from our platform. You receive the indicative notice back within the specific time frame. So essentially what happens is it just speeds up the process because we're not outsourcing DBS checks to somebody else who's doing them for us and adding days onto the process. We're plugging directly into the system. That's the sort of short answer.
Fantastic, thank you. I hope that helps on that front as well. I've just put the link to our online demo into the chat for you there. And what I will do as well is shortly just put another link in for you too, which is a direct link to Chris. I hope you don't mind. A direct link to Chris's calendar, so you can book some time directly with him if you do have any questions that you would like him to answer for you after this in regards to the platform. So we've just got two things to share with you here, which might come in really helpful, might come in handy following this. So we've recently, in partnership with Stephen, so Amiqus and SRC have put together a white paper, which is all about navigating those evolving compliance requirements. So what we will do is I will send tomorrow morning, you'll all receive an email with a copy of the recording and some direct links to these. But if you just can't wait, then you can just scan the QR code there. And then the one on the right is to download our onboarding compliance checklist. So hopefully that'll break down some of that in a bit more detail for you. And if you have a read of them and have any questions afterwards, feel free to, you'll have my details from the email, feel free to drop us a line and we'll answer any questions afterwards that we can. So thank you very much to, I'm just checking in. I wonder if another question's just come through. Excuse me one second. But I do want to say, oh, you're welcome, Peter. Thank you. Just want to say a big thank you to Stephen and Chris. And thank you for your time. Personally, I found it really interesting and really helpful. I hope that everybody who attended it too. Drop us a line if you've got any questions, or if you would like to know more. There's a QR code there to direct to Stephen's LinkedIn, so you can connect with Stephen there, and obviously connect with Chris as well, or getting Chris in touch with Chris directly. So please do stay in touch. As I said, we will share a copy of the webinar recording and those 2 documents with you tomorrow morning, and we'll hope to speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much. Thank you.